Hello dear students, welcome to another lesson in psycholinguistics. Today we'll be talking about language and the mind. And here are some of the definitions. Some of the definitions that are given uh, you know, by Hudson, Chomsky and other scholars for language. So Hudson, Chomsky and O'Connor opine that language is a learned behavior which helps us to reason and to build social relationships. Language thus becomes an important carrier of cultural norms and ways of reasoning about them. It reflects attitudes and social relationships obtained in a particular society, uh, and it's used by members of such community. So these definitions, or this definition of language, uh, is about the social relationship. It's about communication. It's about cultural norms. Okay, so it is about the use of language. We are going to see another definition from another angle with Langacker, 1987, was that language is actually an integral part of the human cognition. His argument is that language use is dependent on experiential factors and inextricably bound up with psychological phenomena that are not specifically linguistic in character. So, as you can see, this definition by Lancaster is somehow different. So, according to him, a language is an integral part of the human cognition. Okay, and it is dependent on experiential factors and inextricably bound up with psychological phenomena. So this definition, as you can see, by Lancaster is somehow different from the first one. Palmer, 7681, Ruddle, Kishar and Swan, Halliday, Cesano, so variously describe language as a functional device to communicate meaning. Ruddle, Kishar and Swan note that it is a highly complex system of communication, while Halliday calls it a system for making meaning. Okay, so if we look at the first definition, language is a functional device to communicate meaning. So again, like the first definition by Chomsky and others, they are defining language in terms of its functional. Uh, so as you see, it's about communication. The other definition by Swan and his friend is about complex system of communication, social communication. The other one, the last one with Holiday, it's again making meaning, so it's communication, which is the basic definition of language. Chomsky in 1998 regards language as an abstract system of behavior constituted by rules that determine the appearance and innate meaning of prospectively indefinite number of sentences. Look at this definition by Chomsky. It is an abstract system of behavior constituted by rules and determine the appearance and innate meaning of prospectively infinite number of sentences. So the essential fact identified by these scholars is that language is behavioral in form and systematic in nature. So according to Chomsky here, he is defining language in terms of abstract system, which is like governed by rules. Okay, these rules are, as we are going to see later, I think, in this video, they are infinite. Okay, infinite, they are finite. However, they form an infinite number of sentences. Infinite number of sentences, as you can see. We will see this definition in a more comprehensive way. Okay, so while some view its nature as being psychological, some regard it as being factual. So some define the language in terms of psychological function, psychological point of view. Others define it in terms of its function. Okay. Human mind. Now we have seen some of the definitions. that are given to language. Now we're going to see definitions about for human mind. Human mind is very deep. However, it is the base of thoughts that gives life to language. The human mind is where the thoughts are conceived and then realized as linguistic elements. So this definition sees the human mind as what gives life to language. Like language cannot exist without the human mind. Basically, this is the main point. H is in 1990 argues that the human mind is only reflected in terms of thoughts made tangible by language. Okay, human mind is abstract. You cannot touch it or feel it. However, it is reflected in terms of thoughts that are made tangible by language. Okay, so the processing of language is seen as a major work that thoughts perform. As such, language reflects thoughts. The processing of thoughts is what language reflects. Again, here, H. Steinberg, Nagata, Allen, as we have seen them in earlier, in lessons, in previous lessons in psycholinguistics. So now that we have seen some definitions of language and other of human mind, how does language relate to the mind? Several scholars have previously linked language and the mind. Vygotsky, 1962, observes that the major function which language performs psychologically is to communicate one's intentions and helps maintain social links. He knows that for one to convey what one has in mind, one has to do it through a language of some sort. So how language is related to the mind is that, according to this definition by Vygotsky, is that we communicate what we have in our mind by language. Okay, you can only communicate or talk or convey what you have in your mind by language, via language. That is, they are very related. The individual's desire for psychological expression of what is in the person's mind in terms of thoughts and intentions is through the medium of language. Okay, so this goes in the in the same respect as the definition above. It's about language is a medium of uh, you know of thoughts, conveying thoughts, intentions. This usually gets realized in social setting to the end of making intentions understood by others. Essentially, the whole point of communication is to have one's intention properly understood and accordingly responded to in the manner that fits into one's purposes and hopes. So it is again um, communicating, communicating one's purposes and hopes, thoughts via language. The Sapir Whorf hypothesis is also famous for linking language to mind. So the claim is that one's language determines one's view of the world and consequently how one relates within that world. This theory thereby posits that language absolutely controls one's mindset and decides the way one uses language. So we can only communicate what we have in our minds via language. So language and thought are uh, very, very linked according to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. And not only that, but language determines the way we think. We see the world uh, in the way that our language wants us to see it. Okay. The greatest weakness of this position is that it has been identified as this view of language absolute control of the human mind. So according to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, uh, language controls has an absolute control over the human mind. Instead, it is a two-way process. Language can influence one's thinking, and it can also reveal one's thoughts. Okay, so it reveals and influence thinking. Okay, this is what others uh, say about this Sapir Whorf hypothesis. They claim that this position is extremist. Okay, like they exaggerate. So the human mind does not, or language does not absolutely control the human mind. However, it influences it, of course, it influences one thinking, and it reveals one's thoughts. So this shows that linguistic relativity is about reciprocity rather than domination. Thank you very much for your attention and see you in the next video.